Can you tell us more about your relationship with Sacha then? Because, I mean, in the movie, we don't know it at all.
No, I know.
It
doesn't become apparent, and you know, initially, the plans were that he was going to be involved directly in showing himself, and then he thought, no. We met Sacha when he was 15 years old. It was our first time to England. Back in '82, we'd gone there to play the Castle Donington Monsters of Rock Festival, which is now called Download. Okay, this is back in '82, and there were bands like Saxon, Status Quo, if you got to say it properly, Status Quo. You know, Hawkwind, which is, of course, Lemmy's old band before he was in Motorhead. It was one of those kind of bills, very, very, you know, one of those English festivals.
Was it jazz blues or blues jazz?
Well,
to reference Spinal Tap, which is what Sacha did a bit in the other day.
Well, the initial, really, Spinal Tap was a takeoff of something that existed in England in a program called this thing called Weekenders, I believe it was called. They made a short movie called The Bad News Tour, and that was actually the first original Spinal Tap. But that's another story. You got sidetracked. Yeah, so along with the show at the Castle Donington, we had 2 nights at the Marquee, which is, of course, much like, I guess, the whiskey in LA, or, you know, very, very, you know, Hendrix played there, The Who. There's a very famous picture of Pete Townsend with his hand up like this, and he's playing a Rickenbacker, and it's with the Marquee written, the Marquee logo, which is, by the way, you were never allowed to cover, even when we played there. Yeah, and of course that was a very big deal. We went and we played the first night, and after we finished the set, there's this young kid knocks at the door and makes his way in. Meanwhile, we've got, you know, Pete Way, the bass player of UFO, who decided he's going to become a producer, and he left UFO and put together his band called Fast Way, which I think was with Fast Eddie Clark at first. And he was kind of doing production, and he had just done some work with Twisted Sister, and he was in our change room trying to talk me into having him produce our record. This was all going on at the same time, and you've got Dee Snider standing there, and you know, and in walks this kid and starts talking to Sacha, and of course I'm overhearing it, and he's like going, "I love you guys are great, you're great," and just going on, and that part in Mothra when you go, it's like fucking falling boulders, you know, and it's like, and I'm like, the exuberance of this kid is like, wow, I'm kind of, so who is he? I walk over to Rob, who is this guy? He goes, this is Sacha, he's, you know, he goes, I'm 15, and like he's at 15, he's already taller than me. He's got those really long, lanky arms. Was a young kid, and you know, he starts telling us that he has family living, and his mother was originally from Toronto, and he'll come visit us, and all this crap. And I mean, you hear lots of stuff when you're out there, and you go, yeah, whatever. You know, you don't really think much of it, but.
Where'd he go?
Needless to say, knock at my door. I open the door, and there's Sacha. He's like, well, "What are you doing here?" I got here and came to visit my aunts and uncles. I'm going, okay, come on in. So we start, of course, this is when he was still a kid. We'd given him our address, so he knew how to find me. It's like, oh my God, it's this kid from England that I met at the Marquee is knocking at my door. It's just that kind of kid, you know, he's just that kind of very special kind of kid. We decided, let's take this guy on the road. You know, he plays drums, you know, he'll become Rob's roadie. So we take him on the road, and this kid is having like the time of his life. We take him out to Quebec, and at that time, you know, sex was like everywhere. I mean, it's just insane. It's this crazy environment. And there's Sacha hiding in the back of the van with this girl that from the club that he got back, and there he is getting his first experiences.
Is that in the extra scenes on the DVD?
We were very happy for him, and we felt very like the older brothers going, "Go get him, boys!" You know. Of course, he had the time of his life, and you know, between the ages of 15 and 17, you know, he'd make his way into from Britain back to Toronto because, of course, his aunts and uncles lived there, and you know, we'd be together. But as time went along, of course, he had had to go finish school and so forth, and we just lost touch. And it wasn't until 2005, like we're talking from 1985 to 2005, we hadn't seen or heard anything from him. And I'd always drive by his uncle's place and I always kind of scratch my head. I wonder if I should go knock at the door, you know. And I never really had the guts to do it because I felt maybe they didn't like me. I don't know what they thought of me. I don't know what his family really thought of that he's hanging around with this metal band, you know what I mean? Of course, as time went on, that all changed, but in 2005, I get an email from him, and he, out of the blue, and he tells me to come down to Los Angeles, and that he's gonna pay for my ticket, and I'm going, what do you mean you're gonna pay for my ticket? I'm thinking about this lanky, crazy guy getting a Hummer in Quebec. What do you mean you're gonna buy me a ticket to come to LA? What have you been doing, right? So I get down to Los Angeles, and he pulls up in this little sports car, which he later told me had originally belonged to Sean Connery. And it's like, okay, I get in, and he starts telling me how he went to UCLA film school and all the whole bit, and that he ended up making this movie with Steven Spielberg called The Terminal, and I went, no way, I just saw it. I was kind of freaking out because I saw his name, but it didn't sink in. It could be the same guy. I'm just thinking, must be another guy, can't be, you know, but at that moment I realized, oh my God, look at what's happened, and that's why he could buy my ticket to Los Angeles. And as the weekend grew along, he took me to a friend's place, this guy by the name of Steve Zalian, who I later found out was the guy that did the screenwriting, I believe, for Schindler's List. So he was a award-winning screenwriter that I was going to the guy's house on Malibu Beach, of all places, and I'm sitting there on Malibu Beach talking to his wife in the backyard while Sacha's having a discussion with this guy Steve in the kitchen, and they go into a conversation. The guy's going like, who is this guy? And Sacha's telling him it's Lips. He's almost 50 years old. He thinks he's still going to be a rock star. And the guy's going, this is compelling. This is very interesting. And what do you think? He goes, well, you know what? I think I might believe him. So he goes, so Steve just looks at him. He goes, you know, you ought to think about maybe making a movie about this guy. And that was sort of the moment, I guess, that Sacha went and started thinking about it. He initially, his original idea when that first weekend, he was telling me he was going to do a movie about Hervé Villagers, the guy from Fantasy Island, you know, the midget guy. And I changed his plans.